The crimson fleet of the Veltar Empire cut through the darkness of space like blood-red daggers. 49 star systems had fallen before their might, each conquest adding to their legend of unstoppable power. The alien warships were massive, beyond imagination. Some stretched for miles, their hulls gleaming with energy shields that could deflect entire asteroid fields. High Commander Nexaval stood in the command center of his flagship, the Death's Herald. His towering frame cast shadows across the bridge as holographic displays showed the latest conquered world, Zephyria Prime. The once proud civilization now served as slaves in the Veltar mining colonies, their cities reduced to ash and their population broken. "Another successful harvest," muttered Sub-Commander Krixtal, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. The Zephyrians surrendered after losing only 30% of their fleet, most efficient. Nexaval's 4 eyes glowed with a cold light. As he reviewed the tactical reports, the pattern was always the same. The Veltar would arrive with overwhelming force, demonstrate their superior firepower, and watch as the enemy's will crumbled. Most species begged for mercy after the first day of bombardment. The smart ones surrendered immediately. "Sir, incoming transmission from Scout Division 7, announced the communications officer, a spider-like creature with multiple arms working various control panels. "Display it," Nexval ordered, barely looking up from his strategic planning. The hologram flickered to life, showing a distant solar system with a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Radio waves pulsed from the world in primitive patterns, television broadcasts, music, and simple communication signals that any advanced civilization would recognize as the babbling of a developing species. Designation: Earth, the scout reported. Through the transmission. Third planet from primary star, population estimated at 7 billion organic beings, technology level, primitive nuclear fission, basic chemical rockets, electromagnetic communications, military assessment, negligible. Threat? Nexaval's mandibles spread in what passed for a smile among his species. 7 billion, excellent. The mining operations will need fresh workers after the Zephyrian stock expires. He gestured dismissively at the image. Standard procedure. Dispatch the Third Fleet. Sir, Sub-Commander Krixtal hesitated. Perhaps we should observe them longer. Learn their behavioral patterns? For what purpose? Nexaval's voice carried the weight of 3 centuries of conquest. They have chemical rockets while we command ships that bend space itself. They split atoms while we harness the power of stars. This Earth will fall faster than any world before it. The bridge bustled with activity as orders were transmitted across the fleet. The Third Fleet consisted of 20 dreadnoughts, each capable of sterilizing continents, along with hundreds of support craft and troop transports. It was massive overkill for a primitive world, but the Veltar believed in absolute superiority. Estimated travel time to target, 14 standard cycles, reported the navigation specialist. Shall I prepare the standard conquest protocol, sir? Yes, orbital bombardment of major population centers, followed by landing operations to secure strategic resources and round up survivors. Nexval turned away from the display, already bored with this newest conquest. Set the fleet to departure. Stations. I want this finished quickly. As the massive alien fleet began its journey toward Earth, automated systems recorded everything about the target world. They catalogued the planet's continents, its weather patterns, and its scattered military installations. The analysis was thorough but dismissive. Humanity's weapons were laughably primitive compared to Veltar technology. The Empire's war computers calculated that Earth's combined military forces could be neutralized within 6 hours of arrival. The orbital bombardment would last perhaps 12 hours to ensure complete demoralization. Then would come the harvesting. Millions of humans transported to mining worlds, construction projects, and manufacturing centers across Veltar space. Another easy victory, Krixtal observed, as he watched the fleet's hyperspace engines charging. These primitives probably still believe they're alone in the universe. Their ignorance will be brief, Nexval replied coldly. Soon they'll understand their place in the natural order. The strong rule, the weak serve. It has always been thus, but deep in Earth's solar system, human astronomers were already detecting unusual gravitational anomalies. Military satellites registered strange energy signatures at the edge of sensor range. And in underground bunkers around the world, generals and admirals were receiving reports that would change everything. The Veltar had studied Earth's technology and found it primitive. They had analyzed human military capabilities and deemed them insignificant. They had calculated the odds of resistance and dismissed them as negligible. What they had never bothered to study was the human spirit. They had never encountered a species that grew stronger under pressure, that turned desperation into determination, that could look at impossible odds and still choose to fight. The Red Fleet sailed toward Earth, confident in their inevitable victory. Behind them, 49 conquered worlds served as testament to Veltar supremacy. Ahead lay a small blue planet that would teach them the difference between defeating an enemy and facing humanity. The greatest mistake in galactic history was about to unfold. Captain Kang Minho gripped the armrests of his command chair as space itself seemed to tear open before them. The stars twisted and bent, reality folding like paper as massive shapes pushed through the fabric of the universe. One by one, the Veltar dreadnoughts materialized from hyperspace, their crimson hulls reflecting the light of Earth's sun like drops of blood against the void. "Sweet mother of," whispered his tactical officer Kim Dong-hyun as the sensor readings flooded his screens. "Sir, those ships are enormous. The largest one is over 3 kilometers long." Minho had commanded the UES Defiance for 8 years, fighting pirates and smugglers in the outer colonies. Nothing had prepared him for this moment. The alien vessels dwarfed anything humanity had ever built, their surfaces covered in strange geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. "Communications, patch me through to Fleet Command," Minho ordered, his voice steady despite the ice forming in his stomach. Around the Defiance, Earth's combined fleet looked pathetically small, destroyers, cruisers, and frigates that suddenly seemed like toys compared to the alien juggernauts. "Sir, Admiral Park Ji-won is on all channels," reported communications. Officer Song Mina, her hands dancing across her console. Static filled the bridge speakers before clearing to reveal the Admiral's calm, authoritative voice. "All ships, this is Admiral Park Ji-won aboard the UES Terra's Fury. We've got 20 confirmed hostile contacts, designation unknown. They've come a long way to visit our little blue marble, so let's give them a proper Earth welcome. All weapons free. Engage at will." The first alien ship to fire was the massive flagship in the center of their formation. A beam of pure energy, brighter than lightning, lanced out and struck the destroyer, UES Soul's Pride. The human vessel simply vanished, not destroyed, not blown apart, but completely erased, as if it had never existed. "Holy hell," breathed Weapons Officer Bei Ji-sung. "What kind of weapon does that?" "The kind that's about to kill us all if we don't move," Minho snapped. "Evasive maneuvers, all power to engines." The Defiance rolled hard to starboard as another energy beam seared through space where they had been moments before. Around them, the human fleet scattered like startled fish, trying to avoid the devastating alien weapons while closing to firing range. Lieutenant Commander Lee Hyun-woo's destroyer, the UES Busan's Hammer, was the first to reach weapons range. His railguns opened fire, sending tungsten slugs at incredible velocity toward the nearest Veltar cruiser. The projectiles struck the alien shields and simply bounced off, sparking harmlessly into space. "This is Busan's Hammer," Lee's voice crackled over the comm. "Our weapons aren't even scratching their shields. Repeat, conventional weapons ineffective." That's when the alien cruiser returned fire. 3 plasma bolts, each one glowing like a miniature sun, struck Lee's ship along its hull. The Busan's Hammer shuddered, atmosphere venting from multiple breaches, but somehow stayed in the fight. "Hull breach on decks 4 through 7, Lee reported, his voice tight with pain. "Engineering is gone, weapons are offline, and we're—" Venting air fast, Minho watched in horror as more human ships fell under the alien barrage. The frigate UES Jeju Guardian broke apart under sustained fire, its crew compartment spinning away into the void. The cruiser UES Andong's Shield managed to fire its missiles before a plasma bolt punched through its reactor, turning the ship into a brief new star. "Sir, we're being slaughtered out here," Kim Dong-hyun reported, his voice shaking. "We've lost 6 ships in the first 5 minutes. At this rate, the fleet will be gone within the hour. That's when something incredible happened. Instead of retreating, instead of surrendering, the human fleet pressed the attack. Captain Yu Sung-min of the UES Incheon's Fury deliberately flew his damaged cruiser into the path of an energy beam meant for a smaller frigate, sacrificing his ship and crew to save 200 other lives. Back in Seoul's underground maze, the aliens were learning that human warfare didn't follow any logical pattern. Sergeant Major Kim's Marines didn't line up for honorable battle. They hid in ventilation shafts, struck from behind, and vanished. Back into the darkness, Corporal Jung Hoseok had rigged an entire platform with speaker systems that projected the sounds of a full battalion, drawing alien forces into an empty chamber. When they arrived, they found nothing but recordings and remotely detonated explosives. "These creatures fight without honor," Velcross reported, his voice tight with frustration. "They refuse direct combat and use cowardly ambush tactics." "Sir," replied one of his troopers, "perhaps we should request additional support. We've lost 8 warriors to primitive traps and improvised weapons." That's when they heard Kim's voice. Again, this time coming from speakers hidden throughout the tunnel system. "Hey, tall, dark and ugly. Yeah, you with the fancy armor. You want to fight with honor? Come find me. Platform 7, level 3. I'll be waiting." It was obviously a trap. Any rational commander would ignore such an obvious challenge. But the Veltar were a warrior species, and their pride had been stung by these primitive tactics. Velcross led his remaining 12 troopers toward Platform 7, their weapons ready and their sensors scanning for ambushes. What they found was Kim Tae-hyung standing alone on the platform, armed with nothing but a standard assault rifle and a grim smile. "Finally," the alien commander hissed. "An honorable fight at last." Kim shrugged. "Sorry, but I lied about the honor thing." That's when the platform floor collapsed, dropping the entire alien squad into a pit filled with industrial acid. The Veltar's advanced armor protected them from the chemical bath, but they were trapped, blind, and completely helpless. "Welcome to Earth," Kim called down to them. "Population still kicking your ass." Similar scenes played out across the globe. In New York, firefighters used their ladder trucks to drop explosive charges onto alien formations from above. In London, sanitation workers had weaponized their garbage trucks, using them as armored battering rams. In Mumbai, street vendors sold alien equipment to resistance fighters at discount prices. The Veltar had expected military resistance. They had prepared for conventional warfare. What they got instead was an entire planet full of creative, stubborn, and absolutely furious humans who refused to play by anyone else's rules. High Commander Nexaval stood in his command center, staring at casualty reports that made no sense. His forces were supposed to have secured Earth's major cities within hours. Instead, they were bogged down in urban warfare against an enemy that seemed to treat impossible odds as a personal challenge. "Sir," Sub-Commander Krixtal reported nervously, "ground forces are requesting immediate reinforcement. The humans are using tactics we've never encountered." "What kind of tactics?" Nexval demanded. "Psychological warfare, environmental manipulation, improvised weapons, and—" Krixtal paused, consulting his reports. "Sir, they appear to be having fun." That was the most terrifying part. While other species fought with grim determination or desperate fear, humans seemed to be enjoying themselves. They were laughing as they set traps, joking as they dodged plasma fire, and treating the invasion like some kind of deadly game. The Veltar had conquered 49 worlds, but they had never faced an enemy that turned warfare into an art form. High Commander Nexval's 4 eyes burned with frustration as he stared at the holographic map of Earth floating before him. Red markers showed Veltar-controlled territories, mostly the smoldering ruins of major cities. But the vast green areas representing human-controlled regions seemed to mock him with their stubborn persistence. 6 months, he hissed, his mandibles clicking with agitation. "We should have been harvesting workers and mining resources by now. Instead, we're bleeding troops faster than we can replace them." Sub-Commander Krixtal approached cautiously, clutching a datapad filled with casualty reports. "Sir, the overnight raids resulted in another 14 casualties. The humans hit our supply depot in former Berlin, destroyed our communication relay in what they call Australia, and somehow managed to steal 3 of our patrol craft." Stolen? Nexval's voice rose to a dangerous pitch. How does a primitive species steal our technology? The answer came from an unlikely source. In the mountains of what humans called Korea, Colonel Han Ji-ho crouched beside the wreckage of a Veltar scout ship, his weathered hands examining the alien controls with the patience of a master craftsman. "Sergeant Park," he called to his communications officer, "patch me through to all resistance cells. Tell them Operation Ghost Dance is a go." Han Ji-ho had been a tank commander before the invasion, but 6 months of guerrilla warfare had turned him into something the Veltar couldn't understand, a shadow that struck everywhere and nowhere, a leader who commanded loyalty without rank or uniform. His fighters were ordinary people, turned extraordinary by necessity. Kim Suho had been a taxi driver in Seoul, but now he could plant explosives that would cripple alien vehicles. Lee Jisoo had worked in an electronics store, but her knowledge of circuits made her invaluable for sabotaging Veltar equipment. "Colonel," whispered Private Lim Jabum from his perch in a nearby tree. 3 alien patrol craft approaching from the northwest. Standard formation. Han smiled grimly. Standard formation was exactly what he'd been hoping for. The Veltar followed their tactical manuals with rigid precision, which made them predictable. Predictable enemies were dead enemies. "Remember," he spoke into his comm unit, "we're not trying to destroy them. We want their ships intact. Use the EMP charges Dr. Yoon designed." The ambush unfolded with surgical precision as the alien patrol craft flew through the mountain pass. Hidden EMP devices detonated in sequence, scrambling their electronics and sending them crashing into the forest below. Within minutes, Han's team had secured 3 functional Veltar aircraft and taken their crews prisoner. But the real victory was happening thousands of miles away, in a basement laboratory beneath the ruins of Tokyo. Intelligence Officer Bang. Mira sat surrounded by captured alien computers, her fingers dancing across keyboards that weren't designed for human hands. "Come on, you alien piece of junk," she muttered, typing commands in the strange Veltar script she'd painstakingly learned. "Let Mama into your secrets." Bang Mira had been a cybersecurity expert before the invasion, but now she was humanity's digital ghost, haunting Veltar networks and turning their own technology against them. She'd already infiltrated their tactical communications, sending false orders that led entire alien battalions into abandoned cities rigged with explosives. Her latest trick was even more devastating. She'd learned to mimic the electronic signatures of Veltar command staff, allowing her to issue orders that the alien troops would follow without question. "Attention all units in Sector 7, she transmitted in perfect Veltar, using the stolen credentials of a high-ranking officer. "Proceed immediately to coordinates 127.3 by 45.8 for priority extraction mission." Those coordinates led to a valley in the former South Korea, where Colonel Han's guerrillas were waiting with captured alien weapons and a very nasty surprise. Back in his command center, Nexval was receiving reports that made his worst nightmares seem pleasant by comparison. "Sir," reported his intelligence chief, a spider-like creature with multiple arms, "the humans have initiated what they call Scorched Earth Protocol. They're systematically destroying everything of value rather than allow us to use it." The holographic display showed the devastating results. Power plants detonated, just as Veltar engineers tried to restart them. Mining facilities collapsed moments before alien work crews could begin operations. Even food processing centers were destroyed, forcing the Veltar to ship supplies from conquered worlds millions of light years away. "They're burning their own planet," Krixtal observed with something approaching awe. "What kind of species destroys its own resources to deny them to an enemy?" "The kind that doesn't know when it's beaten," Nexval snarled. But privately, he was beginning to wonder if the humans were beaten at all. The proof came that very night. Captain Oh Seung-min led a raid on the alien supply base outside former Paris, using 3 captured Veltar fighters and wearing stolen alien armor. The base's defenders assumed the approaching craft were returning from patrol and allowed them to land without challenge. 20 minutes later, the entire facility was in flames, its stored weapons and ammunition distributed to human resistance. Cells across Europe. Oh Seung-min's team vanished into the night, leaving behind only a spray-painted message on the base commander's office wall. "Thanks for the gear. Earth resistance." But the humans weren't content with just military victories. Dr. Yoon Eunji had been busy in her Tokyo laboratory, not just reverse engineering alien weapons, but improving on them. Her modified plasma rifles were smaller and more efficient than the Veltar originals, while her EMP grenades could disable alien technology at ranges the original designers never intended. "The key," she explained to her assistant Park Seojun, "is that they built these weapons for their physiology, not ours. We can strip out the unnecessary components and add features they never thought to include." Her latest creation was a masterpiece of human ingenuity, a portable device that could hack into Veltar communication networks and plant viruses that would spread throughout their entire fleet. It was barely larger than a smartphone, but it could cripple an alien dreadnought's computer systems from the inside. The tide truly turned during what historians would later call the Battle of the Australian Outback. A massive Veltar ground force, over 3,000 strong, was advancing on the hidden human stronghold in the former Northern Territory when they received new orders from their command ship. "All units abort current mission," came the transmission in perfect Veltar military protocol. "Proceed to coordinates 134.5 by 25.2 for immediate extraction." The aliens never questioned the order. It had come through proper channels, with correct authorization codes from a recognized command authority. They turned their convoy around and headed for the new coordinates, where Colonel Han's guerrillas were waiting with captured alien weapons and a carefully prepared killing ground. The battle lasted 6 hours and ended with the complete destruction of the Veltar force. More importantly, the humans captured intact equipment, vehicles, and most precious of all, prisoners who could be interrogated for intelligence. High Commander Nexeval stood before his strategic display, watching red markers disappear from the map as his forces were systematically hunted down and destroyed. The humans weren't just resisting anymore, they were winning. "Sir," Krikstal approached nervously, "perhaps it's time to consider orbital bombardment. If we sterilize the planet's surface, we can eliminate the resistance entirely and destroy everything we came here to harvest." Nexeval's voice dripped with disgust. "The Empire expects resources and workers, not radioactive wasteland." But privately, he was beginning to consider options that would have been unthinkable 6 months ago. The humans had done something no other species in Veltar history had managed. They had turned a certain defeat into an uncertain victory. As night fell over the battlefield of Earth, human resistance fighters checked their captured alien weapons, planned their next raids, and prepared for another day of impossible warfare. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and facing an enemy with technology centuries ahead of their own. They were also winning. The Veltar had come to harvest a primitive world. Instead, they had found themselves trapped in a war with an enemy that refused to follow any rules except one: never give up, never surrender, and always make the other guy pay for every inch of ground. The conquest of Earth was becoming the education of humanity. And the Veltar were learning that there's a big difference between defeating an army and conquering a people who have decided they'd rather die free than live as slaves. Admiral Shin Do-hyun walked through the corridors of what had once been the Veltar Dreadnought Death's Herald, now renamed Retribution by its human crew. The alien ship was massive, 3 kilometers of twisted metal and advanced technology that humanity had claimed through blood and cunning. Hybrid weapon systems lined its hull, a mixture of Veltar plasma cannons and human ingenuity that made the ship deadlier than its original designers ever intended. "Admiral," called Chief Engineer Wang Kyung-wan from across the bridge, "all systems, show green. The new targeting computers are synchronized with our weapon modifications." Shin nodded, his weathered face reflecting the glow of alien control panels that his crew had learned to operate through months of trial and error. Around the Retribution, 93 other captured Veltar ships hung in space like a constellation of revenge. Each vessel told a story of human resistance, some taken in desperate boarding actions, others captured when their crews abandoned them during failed retreats. "Communications, patch me through to all ships," Shin ordered. The bridge fell silent as his words echoed through the fleet. "Today we stop playing defense. For 12 months, these aliens have brought war to our home. Time to return the favor. The human fleet was a patchwork of captured technology and desperate innovation. Dr. Yoon Yoonji's modifications had turned Veltar weapons into something entirely new. Plasma cannons that could fire human-designed ammunition, shield generators enhanced with Earth-built redundancies, and computer systems running hybrid software that even the original manufacturers couldn't fully understand. Admiral, reported Navigator Lee Min-sung, hyperspace calculations complete, course laid in for the Veltar home system. Take us to war, Shin commanded. Space folded around the human fleet as they entered hyperspace, traveling faster than light toward a world that had never known defeat. The journey took 6 days, and during that time Captain Im So-min drilled her marine assault teams relentlessly in the Retribution's cargo bays. Remember, she told her soldiers as they checked their weapons, we're not just fighting for Earth anymore. We're fighting for every species these bastards have conquered over the past 3 centuries. The Marines were a mix of veterans from Earth's resistance and volunteers from liberated worlds. Former slaves who had joined humanity's cause with a fury that even surprised their human allies. They carried modified Veltar weapons alongside human equipment, wearing armor that combined the best of both technologies. When the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Veltar home system, they found a reception committee waiting for them. The alien homeworld of Vel Prime was protected by massive orbital defense platforms, each one bristling with weapons that could shatter moons. Hundreds of Veltar warships patrolled the system in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming with the arrogance of an empire that had never lost a war. "Sir," called Tactical Officer Park Jinwan, "we're detecting over 400 enemy contacts. They've got the entire home fleet here." "Good," Shin replied calmly. "Saves us the trouble of hunting them down later. All ships, execute Attack Plan Alpha. Let's show them what Earth learned about warfare." The Battle of Vel Prime began with a move that no alien strategist had anticipated. Instead of engaging the main fleet, the human ships scattered like startled birds, using their superior maneuverability to dart between the massive defense platforms. Each human vessel was smaller and faster than its Veltar equivalent, rebuilt for hit-and-run tactics rather than the grinding battles of attrition that the aliens preferred. Commander Choi Woo-shik led the first wave in his retrofitted cruiser, Soul's Revenge, diving between 2 defense platforms while his gunners poured fire into their shield generators. "Remember," he called to his crew, "we're not trying to destroy these things, we just need to keep them busy." The real attack came from an unexpected direction. While the defense platforms focused on the human fleet, Captain Im So-min's assault, ships slipped through the chaos and headed straight for Vel Prime itself. Her Marines had trained for this moment, a direct assault on the alien command center, while the enemy's attention was elsewhere. "Boarding craft away," reported Flight Leader Jung Woo-young as his shuttles screamed toward the planet's surface. The small craft were barely visible on Veltar sensors, dismissed as debris from the space battle above. The assault on Vel Prime's capital city was unlike anything in galactic history. Human Marines, supported by liberated alien slaves, stormed through streets designed for creatures twice their size. They moved like shadows through the towering spires of the Veltar command complex, their smaller stature allowing them to use ventilation systems and maintenance tunnels that the aliens had never considered vulnerable. "Breaching charges set," reported Sergeant Kim Namjoon as his team prepared to assault the central command chamber, ready to show these tall freaks what humans do to bullies. The explosion that followed shattered the reinforced doors of the Veltar High Command, and suddenly, the masters of 49 worlds found themselves staring down the barrels of human weapons operated by very angry liberators. Meanwhile, the space battle above Vel Prime had turned into a masterclass in human tactical innovation. Admiral Shin's fleet had abandoned traditional formation fighting entirely, instead operating like a pack of wolves attacking a herd of elephants. Human ships would dart in, strike hard at vulnerable points, then vanish before the slower Veltar. Vessels could respond. "Sir," reported Weapons Officer Bei Suzy from her station aboard the Retribution, "enemy flagship is moving to intercept. It's the same ship that attacked Earth, the original Death's Herald." Shin's eyes blazed with recognition. This was the vessel that had brought war to his homeworld, the ship whose crew had murdered millions of innocent civilians. All power to forward weapons. Let's finish what they started. The duel between the two Death's Herald ships, one alien, one human captured, became the focal point of the entire battle. Plasma bolts and energy beams crossed the void as the two vessels circled each other like ancient gladiators. But the human ship had advantages its alien counterpart lacked, modifications that Dr. Yoon's team had spent months perfecting. Firing. Solution locked, called Gunner Sehun. All weapons ready. Fire everything, Shin commanded. The Retribution unleashed its full arsenal in a coordinated strike that overwhelmed the original Death's Herald's defenses. Hybrid plasma bolts, enhanced by human targeting systems, punched through Veltar shields as if they were paper. Was the alien flagship staggered, atmosphere venting from dozens of hull breaches. But the decisive moment came from the planet's surface. Captain Im Somin stood in the Veltar command center, her weapon trained on High Commander Nexval himself. Around her, human marines and liberated aliens held the rest of the alien leadership at gunpoint. "Attention all Veltar forces," she broadcast. "On all frequencies, this is Captain Im Somin of the Earth Liberation Fleet. Your High Command is now under human control. Stand down your weapons and prepare to surrender." The response was immediate. Veltar ships throughout the system began powering down their weapons, their crews unwilling to risk their leaders' lives. The battle that should have lasted days was over in 18 hours. High Commander Nexval, his four eyes dim with defeat, spoke into the communication system one final time. His words were transmitted not just to his fleet, but to every Veltar outpost across the galaxy. "To all ships and stations of the Veltar Empire," he said, his voice heavy with the weight of 3 centuries of conquest coming to an end. "The humans of Earth have proven superior in warfare. Our invasion has failed, our homeworld has fallen. Let this message serve as warning to all who would threaten the small blue world. Its children are not prey. They are predators." As Veltar, forces across the galaxy received the surrender transmission, Admiral Shin Do-yun stood on the bridge of his captured dreadnought, looking out at stars that suddenly seemed less hostile. The human fleet had accomplished something that no strategist would have thought possible. They had turned a defensive war into an interstellar conquest. "Admiral," called Communications Officer Song Ji-hyo, "we're receiving surrender transmissions from Veltar forces throughout the sector. They're offering to release all their slaves and withdraw from conquered territories." Shin nodded slowly. The war was over, but humanity's real work was just beginning. There were 49 conquered worlds to liberate, an empire's worth of slaves to free, and a galaxy to rebuild. "Send a message to Earth Command," he ordered. "Tell them the stars are open. Humanity is no longer alone." As the human fleet took control of the Veltar home system, the news spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The empire that had seemed unstoppable for 3 centuries had fallen to a species that most galactic civilizations had never heard of. The small blue world at the edge of an unremarkable spiral arm had announced its presence to the universe in the most dramatic way possible. The age of human expansion had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The end.